Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, where we help practice owners become better entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dino Watt. Yeah, so we're going to talk about your finances today. Obviously, a lot of people are freaking out about their concerns. If you were on the Facebook Live a couple of weeks ago with all the docs, we were talking about different ideas around your personal finances or your business finances, talking to your banks, talking to any other lenders that you have about getting some sort of reprieve right now in the times that we're in. So first of all, I would say do that. Like, go talk to those people in your world. Oh, there he is. Let's see. I'm going to move him up to panelist. All right. Here he comes. Hey, Reese. How are you doing, man?
Good. A lot going on right now, but
I was going to say, things blowing up or what?
Yeah, I think they're a lot better right now than they were a week ago. So I feel really good right now.
Yeah, I can just assume
the options available to dentists and specialists and small businesses across the country. There's a lot more options now. So.
Yeah, and it feels like, it's funny because Megan even put on here, true. It feels like it has been like a year. So who was it saying? Oh, I was on a call today with one of our team members, and she was like, this last week, it felt like the last week of pregnancy. That it doesn't feel like a week; it feels like a year. It's like forever. It's like, man, that was a while ago. And I'm sure for you, like, things were just blowing up like crazy in the sense of your phone, right? I'm sure people were calling, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And there's that panic mode that sets in. And yeah. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that today too.
Yeah, I'm on the phone pretty late. Every night I'm on the phone, right? The last 2 weeks, probably every night I've been on the phone until pretty late. I mean, it's like, not midnight every night, but like pushing that most nights, and
sure.
And, all day. And it's just a lot of like, it's not just like a stock market decline. My clients kind of understand, most of them who have been with us for a while kind of understand our investment philosophy and how to how we adjust portfolios during declines and why we do it the way we do it. But there is some people that still, are scared. It's their first time investing. It's their first bear market. It's the first time they've ever seen their accounts go down in 5 years.
Yeah.
So, but to compound it and make it worse, you have like they just don't have any income and they don't have any ability to hold down their overhead. And they either have to lay off staff, furlough employees, terminate, or just keep holding down some payroll. They don't know how to split things up between make it emotionally feel fair and equitable to everyone. And the laws have changed 4 times in the last week.
Wow.
Today we have, pretty good clarity on what to do, but practices really only have like a couple of days still to lay people off and have them qualify for unemployment under the old law. And so it's like still a very crazy 2 days to make some decisions right now.
And you're spending, I'm sure, a lot of your time reading it. Before we get into all that though, we should probably introduce you, because there are people who are I'm very heavily in the ortho world. You're very heavily in the dental world. And you deal with orthodontists as well, just private practice owners. Yeah. And so I wanted to let people know that, so I wanted to talk to Reese because I've known Reese literally for 15 years now, I think it is, since 2006 when we moved, and we were literally neighbors, like next door neighbors to each other. And Reese was building up his company. And back then I remember him talking about, I think I'm going to focus in just on dentists. And, as not a dentist, I was going, well, dude, I need money help with my money too. And he was always gracious about helping out with money, but it's very smart and wise because he went to that specialty of like, let me just talk to these people who I think I can help them with their finances, help them leverage themselves to retire better in the future. And I've watched him just grow like crazy over this last decade. And so when we were talking the other night on my big doctors roundtable, if you will, we've had over, I think it's 3,200 people who've watched that thing so far. And one of the things that people talked about was finances, right? It's like, we got to figure this out, because back then, this was last Monday. So like you said, things have changed so many times, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us real quickly, just why did you choose to kind of get into the space, and what is your main focus? Because what I love about you is that you are a paid fiduciary. You're not somebody who is being paid off of the commissions. You're hired to do a job, and you do that job the best you possibly can.
Yeah, I think my motivation was I got to a point to where I was seeing a lot of dentists and orthodontists, pedo, OS, like all the dental specialties and GPs were just like being taken advantage of a lot by other financial, we'll call it salespeople, that were just like didn't have their best interest at heart. And I just saw how many bad decisions how many people were in pain. And I saw how early in life, like if you get paired with the wrong person early in life and you start getting their philosophy in your head, that it takes a lot of time to unwind those incorrect ideas. It's finance isn't like an academic curriculum that people get during college and high school. And so usually the place that the first book they read or the first person they come in contact with often like influences them quite a bit.
That becomes their gospel.
And if that gospel is like maybe like 60% accurate, then they like really can struggle throughout their entire life. So what I've tried to do is develop a curriculum and a philosophy, a set of I actually have like an iOS app that we've built, and
I remember when you were first starting that. I remember when you were talking about just the basics of it. And it's like, so I'm thinking about doing this. And I have a specific memory of sitting in your office. And at that time it was a small little like workspace type office. Mm-hmm. And you showing me this thing on the screen and me being like, this looks so overwhelming. Wow, that's like crazy.
You're like, crazy. I don't know if I want to.
No, for me, like I am so not the numbers guy, but I'm like, I'm so glad there are people out there in the world who get this and they can do it.
Can you see my screen right now?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
So like this Elements app down here at the bottom of my screen, it's got this cube, like this Rubik's Cube down here.
Yep.
So the periodic table of financial elements was my like first way of like helping finances make sense to somebody, but we couldn't really fit a good periodic table on an iOS app. Icon. So all the 12 financial elements fit nicely into a 3-faced cube, and people voted on that one. And so we went with it. But like what inside of here, we track these kind of characteristics about people to make sure that they, like instead of just talking about someone's savings, we talk about their savings rate. And we actually want to measure what that rate of savings is and determine, like this person's like insanely healthy. Like a 43% savings rate's like out of control. Like they need to take a vacation and like relax a little bit.
Spend a little bit of money.
Yeah, man. But like, that like instead of talking like generically about a financial topic, we want to quantify that a little bit and make sure that we bring some like rigor to the conversation so that we can actually move the dialogue forward. So if you want to talk about like saving up for a rainy day, well, saving up for a rainy day is a very abstract concept, right?
Right.
But if we talk about that being like a concrete concept like liquidity, now liquidity is a concept that's really important. And if we look at someone's liquidity and we say their liquid term score is a 1.2, that means that their net, you take their liquid assets and you divide it by their annual personal spending. And you say, well, how long could that person live on their total liquid assets? Now we have a concrete concept. This person's a 1.2 LT score. So that means, if you're a 0.3 or a 0.4, that's not as stable as someone that's a 1.5 or a 1.3, right? And so now instead of like, Dave Ramsey is a great like financial thought leader, but like comes from a different frame of reference where he might say like save up for a rainy day or a 3-month emergency fund.
Right.
And it's like, well, that doesn't actually, that's not quite concrete enough to give someone tangible takeaways. Like if you're a dentist and your monthly practice overhead is like, $40,000 a month, that's very different than if you're on a W-2 paycheck working for
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you're also right now, when you're thinking rainy day, I guarantee 99% of the people did not think Oh, rainy day means literally I'm going to walk into work on Monday and the government's going to shut down my source of income.
Yeah.
Like they were thinking, all right, maybe we'll have a recession and I got to like tighten the belt a little bit.
Yeah.
No one was thinking this. So you're right. This is very much more specific.
Yeah, and I want, when you talk about retirement, for example, I'm not like gonna say, well, let's talk about retirement. I want to talk about financial independence, right? I want to like actually measure if somebody wants to spend like, we'll call it $9,000 a month, their nest egg is going to be very different. This person would need a $3.2 million nest egg to kick off 9,000 a month, assuming this withdrawal rate right here of about 3% was what they felt comfortable with. A withdrawal rate is the percentage of money that you're going to feel comfortable taking out of your portfolio every year. Right. So if you feel comfortable with a 7 or 8 or 9% withdrawal rate, you're crazy, because that's too high. And, but you'd only need like $1 million in order to make that happen. And this thing down here below that's really red, it says target total term score. Your total term is basically your net worth divided by your annual personal spending. So whatever your total value of your wealth is, of all your practice equity, your retirement, your cash, like if you divide that, this person's very wealthy, obviously, and they've got they're very prepared. You divide their net worth by their annual personal spending, and that is a 31 score. A 31 score is like literally financial independence. Like you're going to be fine, like at that score rate, because, a 30 means that you've only got a 3% withdrawal rate, and this is very healthy. So if you spend $9,000 a month, 3 million is going to be plenty. If you spend $5,000 a month, probably 2.1 million is going to be plenty. And so what we want to talk about people in terms of the progress they're making in terms of their total term score. Because if your spending goes up too much, then your score actually goes down, right? If you spend more, it's harder. And so you want to make sure that you're tracking that. And anyway, I'll get off my tangent of topics here, but like, I think it's good for people to know the framework behind like how, like what I'm doing is I'm trying to build a methodology that a lot of financial advisors are using to talk to people about money, as opposed to, hey, I've got this tip for you. You should use, if you just would trade options this way, or if you'd buy insurance this way, or you should put your money in annuity, or you should buy income producing real estate. All those are good things potentially, but they're not the underlying behaviors that drive financial health. The underlying behaviors are your spending rate, your savings rate, your tax rate, your debt to income ratio, your liquidity, your retirement account balances, your real estate equity, your practice valuation. There's behaviors that you can like actually, influence, and that's what these elements are. These are things you can influence. These are things you can tangibly do.
And the business term, this is the lead measures, not the lag measures, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. These are your lead KPIs that drive your performance of your holistic financial health and drive the growth of your net worth over time. So you want to be tracking your net worth. You want to be moving everything in a positive direction. And then we obviously have a lot of, availability to be able to get in touch with people and serve as a comprehensive advisor to them in all these ways. And so whether you're a student that just needs to get like education on financial orientation and getting pointed in the right direction, whether they're early career, mid-career, or late stage, this philosophy that we've developed kind of helps us guide our choices. And we go through topics every month, and we kind of rotate through these topics so that we're always working on something with a client. So we got into it mostly by just like finding that dentists and people like dentists, like we haven't expanded our, I probably will never expand my service business to other occupations because it's hard to develop narrow expertise in an occupation. But I'm letting my software be used by other financial advisors, and I want this methodology to be like applicable. And where I'm finding that it's applicable is in other, we call them intra-professional niches, where you're an intra-professional, Dino. You're a highly skilled, highly trained consultant that also owns their small business. And that type of person is particularly, they line up well with our philosophy and methodology. It's the business owner that also is mostly a skilled trade or highly trained, highly educated consultant, or could be a general contractor that's building custom homes, has a small 10-man team. Those types of financial advisor, the financial advisors that serve those niches tend to really resonate with our financial product and the philosophy that we use. And so we're trying to evangelize that. And we hope that the world just gets to be in a place where people are making better financial decisions. We call it holistic financial habits that allow them to live more in the present moment. We want them to be like living life present because they're making these good choices. So anyway, thanks for letting me share that context.
So one of the things I like about that is the fact that it shows us kind of your brain and how you think about things, that you're just not looking at, all right, do you want to, you're actually breaking down what the need is that was understandable for me, someone who's not into the financial world. And like you said, most people are not taught this in school. It's one of the things that I talk about as well, where you're not taught business in school. You're also not taught how to do finances in school. So I think there's the importance of that. What we want to do is we want to get to a couple of questions here from people who are asking, of course, what's going on. But before we do that, I kind of know, what do you see is the biggest panic and worry right now, besides we don't know what's going on because the laws are changing? What do you feel, what are the questions that are coming to you the most from your clientele or people that are reaching out to you?
Talking about orthodontists specifically, like the ortho community, would that be the most helpful, or
I think both ortho dental. I mean, I see some people coming up here scrolling around asking some questions. I think they're flexing between both.
Okay. Yeah, I would say orthodontists stayed open a little bit longer than a lot of the GPs did. Some of their revenues aren't quite as impacted just because some of them are on contracts and
sure.
And so that is kind of nice, as opposed to when insurance reimbursements and, then most of the GPs are in a lot different position. But most orthodontists that I work with, it was the last few days. It wasn't 2 weeks ago when they were shutting down. It was just the last handful of days for a lot of them. Okay. And so at this point, the most stressful thing I think everyone is thinking is, how do I take advantage of all of the government programs that are available? That's the biggest stress, because right now, most people, if you survey dentists nationwide, probably 70% plus of all dentists and specialists have already laid off or terminated all their staff and told them to go get on unemployment. And that then there was several bills that helped enhance the unemployment benefits, which were almost equivalent to the prior wages that they're getting paid.
Right.
And so it's actually a pretty good deal.
It's not like they're gonna have to live off half of their paycheck right now. It's pretty close to the full
amount.
Almost
100%. And so, most people that haven't laid people off are wondering, should I still, now that the new payroll protection program is being enacted into law, the new payroll protection program reimburses a small business who was forced to shut down during this period up to 2.5 times their monthly payroll for on a potentially debt-free, meaning loan-free, loan forgiveness program. So if I have 50 grand a month in, operational payroll, including my doctor's salary up to 100,000, including my associates up to 100,000, then I can get 2.5 times that in an SBA loan that will allow me to get, 125,000, for example. If it was 2.5 times 50,000 per month, that would be 125,000. I can get that from the SBA. And I'll be able to use that towards payroll, leases, insurance, and I think that's the extent that's been listed. So
the question though is, for how long? Do you know, have they said they're going to do this for 3 months, for 2 months, or because there's still money that needs to be replenished into the coffers in some way. So how long is that going to work?
Yeah, I've got that written down here that I just got a notice from SBA.gov this morning. It looks to me like this will be till July 31st. So the loan, it says the covered period for receiving a loan is February 15th to June 30th. So sorry, February 15th to June 30th. I think
So,
that's
and from what I understand, you actually don't have to go to SBA.gov to do it. You can actually go into your local banks. Is it starting April 2nd? Is that
I
right?
think they're only going to do it through banks.
Through banks. Okay. So
And
that'll
so
make it a lot easier for people. So that'll help with the keeping your team members on payroll, should they want to stay on payroll.
you can also hire people back and still be covered. That what they want to do is they want to encourage people to bring everyone back that was there before.
That was there, right?
And so that'll allow people to, if you did push people on unemployment, they're not going to penalize you for that. It looks like you just have to be able to get the people back on payroll that were there, and then they'll be able to release the funds for that purpose. It's a pretty significant government program. Like that's kind of unprecedented, you know?
Yeah, of course. That's amazing. What then becomes of the income side of things? Because you're literally paying people to running out of jobs to do in your office. Like you can only clean so often. You can only have them do so much work at home. So what have you been hearing from your docs about having them what to do and also bringing in more income into the office? Because obviously you can't do a whole bunch in the GP world, even in the ortho world, you can't bring in patients yet.
Yeah. I think the general advice still from most CPAs and HR companies that I've been speaking with is that they're still recommending that people lay off their team and then bring them back at the point that they get their office reopened. So that's general, because the covered period is February 15th to June 30th, and that most people are going to be in just as good a shape on unemployment. They're recommending that course of action. I don't think that's what the government necessarily wants to have happen, but I do think that's possible, and it's understandable given I don't really want to go and apply for that loan until I'm really back in business, because then I'm just going to be using that money towards nothing. Right. And so I think that's the general guidance that I'm seeing as of this morning. This is pretty like today kind of stuff though.
That's what's cool about it, is it's in the moment. And so if you're watching this a week later, we're not held to anything we're talking about here. We have no idea.
Anything.
That's right. Well, okay. So there are a couple of questions here that we had on here, and maybe it's more about bills and things like that. We have, oh wait, where'd that go? John Sherrill. Was it the side question? Side question from a doc. What about offering a discount for patients to pay off their entire balance? He said they're trying to pay bills in advance. Oh, so maybe he's talking about having orthodontic patients coming in and giving them a discount just to pay that, just to bring in more cash flow. But if the cash flow problem is solved in the sense of payroll, because from what I understand too, that payroll benefit, the reason why they're doing the 2.5 times is so that you can also cover overhead.
Some of your overhead. Yeah.
Some of your overhead.
It's going to be payroll related expenses though. Some health and retirement benefits, and other qualified expenses include interest payments on debt, mortgages on your building. Even if you own your own building, I think it's going to qualify as one that comes back, and you can pay yourself back on that. And then rent, and then utilities, and then there's language for other debt obligations, other business debt obligations, which I don't really know what that means. It's probably like equipment and your CEREC and your cone beam or something. I would think those would qualify.
All right. So one of the things I've been talking about is the after, because there's going to be an after, right? So how we prepare ourselves now for the after is going to make a big difference. So with not bringing in income, with having your business kind of basically sit stale for the next how many weeks, months, we don't know. What have you been talking to your clients about and advising them when it comes to best business practices for what they should prepare for? Because it can't be just a matter of, oh, green light, oh, doors are open, everybody just go back to work and it's going to be a slam of work. There's going to be some probably trickle and rollout to it.
Yeah, I think everyone has to have a pretty strong marketing program and a good social media program. Like if you don't have one, I think ultimately like right now is a time to build your audience. Let them know what you're going through. A lot of people don't even know you're out of business. A lot of people don't think that my dentist is shut down completely.
That's true.
And so I've had a lot of conversations with just average people that are just like, oh man, I never realized that that would affect them so much, right? The dentist would be that affected by this crisis. And after I explain it to them, like, man, I got to go see my guy as soon as he opens. I'm going to go in and help him out by showing up. That kind of like awareness, sharing that with your community, I think is a huge advantage, and you should definitely consider starting to make it clear to people what is going on. You know, I like to focus on my social media program using like education material and adding value instead of just advertising. And so just get on there and this is a good time if you there's a lot of resources. Later today, I've got probably 2 Facebook lives on our private Facebook group at dentistadvisors.com/group on social media. So like my social practice is coming on today to talk about how to do social media activity during COVID. I think that would be a really, that's what I would work on, is getting the demand ready, letting people know that this is happening and that you've been affected by this and that you're excited to get your patients in and get things rolling quickly. And even potentially create, a program, some kind of a program that looks, intentional for people to feel some sense of urgency to get in there and get caught back up, right?
I love that idea. I love that idea of actually educating them on like, okay, so this is what you should do. I've always been a big fan of education sales. That people actually appreciate being educated before they actually make a decision, because then they're actually they feel like they're making an empowered decision. And so if you could actually create that program that says, okay, so this is how it's going to work, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what you need to prepare for. They want to be told what to do. So if you could be that person to tell them that. I think we covered the question around the expanded unemployment. It said that somebody, John was saying that a lot, they work for Ormco. A lot of their clients are weighing all their options. Do they have to let them all go before applying for the SBA loans?
No, you can keep your team on. There's 2 SBA loans. There's a disaster recovery program, which has been in existence since the late 90s. This new thing is a SBA 7A loan. Sorry, I haven't eaten in like 10 hours, so I'm eating a banana.
That's okay.
Shout out to everyone who's starving.
Keep your health.
Yeah. So the new SBA 7A program that's being delivered through banks is a payroll protection program. You can't apply for both the SBA disaster recovery program and the 7A payroll protection program. It's one or the other. You can apply for lines of credit from your local bank, like under another statute. Like I've got clients with, $200,000 or $300,000 of credit line that they were just approved for, and that's not either one of these 2 SBA programs. So I would, if it were me, when I was a dentist, I would make sure I have a home equity line on my house to make sure I'm protected there. You don't have to use it, but just get as big of a home equity line as you can. Get as big of a credit line as you can from your local bank, independent of these 2 programs, because you might not be seeing this SBA money through this new payroll protection program might not show up for, could be 45 days, could be 60 days.
Sure.
And so that, begs the obvious question then, well, do I need to keep my staff on since this money's coming? Like, should I keep them on? I think my general thought is like, there's not really an advantage to doing that if you're not open. If you're not open, I mean, at least go to like reduced hours unemployment. There's like reduced hours and there's full termination. You've got to like take some action that will, while you're not open, help support you. Or a lot of staff, like a lot of ortho staff, they're not the primary breadwinner. So a lot of people are like, it's fine, I'll just take this time off. And
yeah, that was a big conversation that was had over there. If it's not living paycheck to paycheck, the other one was, there are people who just don't want to come in because of their own health concerns.
And you can't force them to. And that's another, that's another HR issue that, like, to be candid, like I'm not in super deep when it comes to like the FMLA rules around what the regulations are behind what you can say and not say to an employee.
Right.
To keep yourself out of hot water. I would do like HR for Health is pretty good. hrforhealth.com. Like they like publish some pretty good stuff on that. But anyway, that's the general feeling I'd have is if you know, there's a likelihood that you're not open for 35 to 40 days.
Oh yeah.
Maybe
I think there are some people who are,
months,
there are some people who are looking at 60 to 90 days. So
since I'm trying to be conservative, I'm just saying it's probably not an advantage of like that SBA program's open clear through the first part of June for a reason. It's because they're not really assuming that they're going to be able to get this thing up and running until then. So you're not going to spend money for that. So I just don't think I would use this as a chance to like not take action on my strategy to either lay off, terminate, or furlough certain people. You need to have an HR strategy that tackles that immediately, independent of this program, because it won't affect your ability to qualify for this funding.
Yeah, I think that's the important point is that it's not going to affect your ability to qualify for it. So you might as well do it, number one. Number two, do you know if there's any stipulations in there about do they actually have to have employees coming to work and punching a time clock in order to qualify for that or to be able to get reimbursed for that?
They just have to be on payroll.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, you could technically do this independent of whether they're physically at the office.
Nice. Wow. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. Well, let me do this before I go to some questions. I want to go kind of back to your, especially focus on your expertise of this, is that here I am, I'm going to just throw out a scenario. I've been investing, like you said, I've had a plentiful, 5 years. Things have been going really cool. Thank you to the economy and things that are happening there. And now everything's shifted. I have this saying that I use all the time, which is the higher the emotion, the lower the IQ, right? So I get super emotional about stuff. I'm going to start making stupid decisions. What are the things that I don't want to be doing right now with my portfolio and the stock market, with my retirement, because of my panic, that you would recommend that we actually keep pace? What we should be focused on?
Well, there's not like right now, like if you're a financial advisor, like this should not be a problem for people who had a good plan. So like declines in stock markets and recessions in stock markets are going to happen. And your plan should have included a portion of money, probably 3 to 4 years worth of personal spending that was not in the stock market. Okay. That was not part of this massive volatility. If you are close to retirement, meaning if you're within 10 years of retirement and you didn't have that kind of cushion, your financial advisor wasn't planning appropriately for that moment in time. And if you're really early on in your career, meaning you're 15 to 20 years out from retirement, there's a lot of people that are on the internet right now that are trying to get everyone carte blanche to make adjustments to their portfolio. Like, oh, we're going to go deeper, so sell out of stocks. Oh, this is going to be worse, so bail out of. Oh, the bond market's going to fall apart because the government's buying treasuries. You got to bail on fixed income, stop buying corporate bonds. Like, if you're 20 years away from retirement, that's a very different decision than if you're within 10 years or within 7 years. And so I think it's really important, that you have a good relationship with either your CPA that's functioning as your financial advisor and is a fiduciary, or you've got a fee-only fiduciary advisor like dentist advisors that can coach you through whether your portfolio is properly positioned right now. There's a lot of people that the right answer isn't just stick with this and you'll be fine, because you weren't positioned properly to begin with when you got to this point. And if we do have another, 20 to 25% decline, and we have a 3-year choppy market, and you're only a few years or 5 years away from retirement, like we might need to make some urgent adjustments right now to your overall portfolio, because there isn't it wasn't prepared for this, right? If you're really early, there's probably less likelihood that you would make significant adjustments, but That depends on the quality of the portfolio that you've built, how expensive it is, how it's allocated. Like, is it all domestic US stock? Do you have money in Europe? Is it heavily concentrated in precious metals or gold? Is it in China? Is it imbalanced in any way that's like disproportionately emphasizing one sector like energy, or oil? And so you want to make sure that your portfolio really is diverse and that it really is inexpensive and that it's positioned in a way that matches your age in life. And as you deposit money right now, there's a really critical trading decision you have to make every time you deposit. You have to decide where to allocate that money as the market continues to decline. Those choices are so important. And if you are saving a little bit of money or you have some cash that you've been waiting to invest and you haven't deployed it, I just finished an article called like, Am I Too Early? And it's about like, I've had some money on the sidelines, but I don't know if I should jump in right now or if I should wait a little longer.
Yeah, I'll be transparent. That's where we are right now, is we're going like, wow, we spent the last couple of years really building up our finances and stuff. And so Shannon and I are having this robust debate about like, okay, is this like the best time to jump in right now or what? And of course, I don't want to be the person making that decision, because I'm like, yeah, let's go buy a whole bunch of Disney. I don't know. I have no idea like what I'm doing.
Well, and things move so quickly, I think that it sometimes can feel like it might be that we already had our generational buying opportunity prior to the stimulus package. Like that might have already happened. We're up 15% from that point,
Yeah.
We're still 25%, down from the market highs, which is still an incredibly good time to purchase stocks for people that want to hold them for a decade. Disney's had some good recovery. Delta's had some good recovery. A lot of companies that were really disproportionately affected by this crisis have recovered somewhat. But, it's not likely that we're like on a rebound right now. It's likely that we'll be in a very volatile moment for months as the number of cases continues to rise in the US and the pressure on the hospital systems continues to get higher. And so I would just say that like any good long-term investor, you should have been investing that cash, 3 years ago and 2 years ago and a year ago. I'm not talking to you specifically. I'm talking about the general audience here.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound.
I hear it. I hear you're piercing my heart. I understand. That's whatever. I'm good. I can take it.
And right now is still a good time to keep allocating, but not for money that you're going to need in 5 years. Right?
Yeah.
This is not a time to invest money that you're going to need in 5 years. There are a lot of places to invest money in the fixed income market, in the bond market, that are much more appropriate than the stock market for money that you're going to need in the short term. So that'd be some general ideas, I guess, about how to approach this. I would just point people to a resource on my website. If you go to dentistadvisors.com/podcast or dentistadvisors.com/listen, I think those URLs will take you to our podcast where you can subscribe. And each week, there's an episode that we release on stock markets and on investing and positioning your finances properly, all this stuff. And then our private Facebook group, we answer a lot of questions and do live Facebooks every few days. And that's dentistadvisors.com/group. If you just go to dentistadvisors.com/group, you can just chime in on a lot of stuff that we're doing there. We'll be publishing an action plan later today, or maybe I think it's going to be at like 5 p.m. or something, that we'll publish like kind of an action plan on how resources that you can connect with to make your decision between now and April 1st, when you have to make a decision on the unemployment, and then investment resources and whatnot. So
awesome. So there's a couple questions here. I think the first one I'm going to answer real quick, which was by, I think, Dr. Park here. She's asking, I think is a question we asked before about, she says, if staffs are working reduced payroll hours, can they still apply for and qualify for unemployment benefits, or do they need to be terminated prior to applying for unemployment benefits? I think it depends on the state, but your reduced hours, they can be unemployed and work a few hours, depending on, say, like California, Utah, different states like that. So you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah,
on
you
that.
can just you can terminate employees, or you can they can qualify for unemployment with reduced hours, and a lot of
Yeah.
people will use reduced hours as the method. But there, it will be reduced, by like if you need people to work reduced hours, that's probably the appropriate measure for those select employees. But it doesn't really help them financially or you financially to have them work reduced hours, because they're just going to get the money one way or another, and it's either going to come from you or from unemployment, given the
Yeah.
most recent.
And they take off that amount. They determine the percentage of what they get based upon how much they are working. If it's zero work, then that's one thing. If it's minimal hours, it's another. The other question here was, what do you consider right now, especially where we're in, a reasonable interest rate for those HELOCs that you're talking about, some or lines of credits that they might have just in general?
Right now, you should be in the high threes. It's weird because the 15-year mortgage right now rate is higher than the 30-year mortgage, and it's just happened over the last few days. So a line of credit will probably be in the high threes to low fours. That would be like your current market rate environment loans. The payroll protection program, there is no interest on the payroll protection program for this SBA product. And then on the disaster recovery loan, it's 3.75%, and it's over 30 years. And so depending on the type of business,
and isn't the payroll protection one, that one's the one that's forgiven, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not even a payback.
Assuming it's only forgiven based on very detailed accounting records that you have, and that you are employing the same number of people that you were prior to this event.
So the question I have for that is, so there are people like me, because we were talking about this too when I first heard about it last week, and we are looking into it. I was going, well, okay, because we laid off a few of our higher ticket employees that we have, and so I thought, well, wait a minute, can I also qualify for that as a small business owner? However, those employees are 1099 employees.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Contractors are not viewed the same as W-2 employees. So no, like a lot of dentists or orthodontists will employ an associate on a per diem or, a percentage of collections, and that on a 1099, that's not the same. And so you can't payroll for those types of expenses.
What about, let's talk a little bit about, evaluating and pivoting your rolling cash reserves when you've got little or no income coming in.
Yeah. So can you repeat the question one more time?
Says, how about how to evaluate and pivot your rolling cash reserves when you've got little or no income coming in?
Well,
maybe about the amount of money that you're putting into your cash reserves every month, since you have no money coming in. How do you determine that?
Well, I think just as a general rule, you always want to have between 1.3 to 1.4 your monthly overhead in your practice checking account, up to 2 times your monthly payroll in your practice checking account. That's my general advice at all times. So you're 1.2 to 2, depending on how fast you're growing. The faster you're growing, the more you're going to want to maintain, just because if you run into a problem like we just had, this is the consequence of only having 1 times or 0.5%, times your monthly overhead. Personally, I always recommend having an LT, we call it an LT score, but 6 months minimum of personal liquidity. That can be invested in really short duration bonds like money market and a high yield money market account. You can make 2% on that kind of money, but it just needs to be accessible to you daily. I keep mine inside of a tax-free municipal bond mutual fund that pays me 3.5% tax-free from the state of Utah. There's a lot of states that'll have a tax-free mutual fund that you can get your money in and out of over a couple of days. And I don't mind having a little bit of volatility in that money, because I don't need it all the time, only when there's a pandemic. And so
in which case you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So anyway, that I would say, your reserves need to just be repositioned to those levels.
Okay. So I think this was also, I think maybe somebody, Daniel asked, is it true that unemployment will pay $900 per week for 2.5 months? And if so, we can keep our employees partially and figure out, sorry, that my screen just scrolled up, partially and figure out what to do with them with pay after the period. I think what he's asking is just clarification on the unemployment side of things, but the number depends on how much that person is being paid, right?
Yeah, it does. I think there's a maximum though, the House wanted. I think they just passed this
They
like an
did. They
hour
just passed
ago.
it.
And
Yeah, they
so
did.
I think it's $600 a week minimum wage, which is what they were proposing prior, which correlates to like 15 bucks an hour if like on a 40-hour week. And a typical practice member though might be making more like $20 to $25 an hour, but those people should receive $400 or more in state unemployment in addition to the $600 in federal unemployment. So I think that's closer to $1,000 a week now.
Okay. Can you clarify what you were talking about earlier around the difference between the disaster loan and then what this emergency thing is going to here? Because one has to be paid back, the other one does not. Is that correct?
One has to be paid back over the disaster recovery loan has to be paid back over a 30-year period, but it is up to $2 million that you can apply for.
Oh, wow.
And that it's paid back over 30 years, and it's a 3.75% interest rate for for-profit businesses. And if you happen to be a nonprofit clinic, it's 2.75% for nonprofits. It's over a 30-year term, so it's very flexible repayment period, but it's still up in the air on how many dental practices would qualify for that, because it was intended for like flood and disasters and like natural
right.
were more of the intention, and it's unclear to what extent the SBA is going to be comfortable lending. They didn't have reserves for this program for this type of problem, and so I think that most people will be applying for the payroll protection.
I was going to say, so it sounds like if you are worried about the payroll and overhead side of things, focused on the payroll protection one, not the disaster relief, because the constrictions are going to be higher probably for the disaster relief, number one. Number two, you're not going to have to pay back the other one. Here's a great question that I'm assuming it's not, but you never know with government. Is it a first come, first served basis?
Well, these banks are going to have their own employees that are going to process these express loan applications on a first come, first served basis. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing I was thinking about the other day, is like, which bank would I talk to? Like my local bank that has like one person working there, like, and they're just barely know how to use a computer. Am I going to go like run down to Wells Fargo or Chase or try to get on a national hotline? Like, you just want to find somebody right now you feel like they got their act together, because you don't want to be stuck with you're not going to like not get approved, and they've got enough money. I mean, it was like almost 300 and I don't know how many $billion, 350 billion is allocated for the Paycheck Protection Program.
Oh, I'm sorry. So your wife doesn't shop at Target, because my wife could go through that. I don't know what you're talking about. So staff does not need to apply for unemployment every single week. It's a matter of they go in and apply for that, right? And it's usually, I think it's they have to send something in. It's not like they have to go down to the office and reapply, or go online and reapply every week. That's correct.
Yeah. Yep, they just have to do it once.
But
this payroll protection program too, the proceeds have to be used within 8 weeks for qualified expenses from the time you apply.
So that's why it might be, like you were talking about earlier, strategic wise, for those of you that are thinking through this, you might actually want to go ahead and unemploy all of your team members, let them all go so they can apply for that. They're going to get, like Reese was saying at the very beginning, they've added so many different stimuluses to this thing that if you have somebody who's making 20 bucks an hour, they might get the equivalent of like 15 to 18 bucks an hour. If you don't include taxes in that, I mean, they're actually making off pretty well.
Yeah.
But then let's just say everything, they give us the green light and we're good to go, June 1st, or let's go back, because you said it was June 31st is when the cutoff date is?
Yes.
So let's just say it's June 1st that we all get to go back.
June
you apply.
June 30th is the cutoff date.
June 30th. So then you go and apply June 1st so that you can take care of yourself over the next couple of months, because like you said, that's where they're going to start. The clock is there. You have to pay it back within a certain, or you have to use the funds, so you say, not pay it back within a certain
I think it just
time.
makes sense to use it when you're open.
Yeah.
That's when it makes sense to use it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really, really smart.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you apply federal and state separately, or I'm sure it's all just one? You're doing it through the bank, so the bank's going to apply all that for you. So we got that good. And lastly, is the amount loaned to you SBA based on your 2019 production?
It's based on
I think it's
the 2.5 months worth of overhead.
Yeah.
Is your trailing 12-month average of your payroll and payroll related expenses.
Yeah. So you have to prove that and just bringing in your payroll expenses and whatever you have there accounting wise. So
yeah. And the doctor, the compensation limit for any one person is 100,000.
Right, for any one person. So if you're paying yourself 100,000, but you're going to get 100,000 plus the extra, aren't you?
Well, your salary of 100, if you're paying yourself 150 or more or something,
a month, right?
Yeah, they're only a year, right?
I was saying you pay yourself 100,000.
Dude, I'm paying myself nothing right now.
I know, me too.
Yeah, I gotta hold off for a bit here, trying to I got a lot of payroll that I'm trying to keep during this crisis.
Which is a really good point that I hope people get is, and I know they do, is that you're coming from a place, and when I'm talking to my clients and I'm talking to all these Facebook Lives, like I'm coming from, like we're in that boat too, right? Just because we don't have that, that office that we're going to, that we're actually cleaning people's teeth or whatever, we actually have the same situation going on. Your employees can't come into the office either. They've got challenges and concerns worried about. You've got to worry about your overhead, stuff like that. Same with me. So I think that's a really good, reminder that you're thinking this through like a small business owner.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I think a lot of people over the next, it's much more clear today. I feel much better about things than I did a week ago. I do think there's a path forward, and I'm not as worried now. I just think it's a big package and it's very expensive, and it is that's a significant amount of debt that's going to be incurred by our national balance sheet. But I just think, man, if we went 3 to 4 months to 5 months without, we'd lose probably 100,000 jobs. I mean, sorry, 100 million people would be out of work.
Yep.
This is just like the bulk of the industry. You think about the dental industry, like, okay, it's like is it like probably 1 million people employed?
Yeah.
That are just done right now. And that's just like one segment of one industry. Right. And
Amazon can't hire all of us. I mean, although they're trying, I think they're going to try. What people don't know is that the beard Reese is sporting right now, that all grew out just in the last 2 days because of the stress that he was dealing with. So
not very well groomed.
Just to clarify too, they can't all apply for $100,000 per employee. You have to prove your employee, your payroll for that employee. What Reese was talking about was that if you personally get $100,000 or yours is a salary of $100,000 for the year, or your associate or your partner or whatever, that is the cap, is $100,000. You can't apply for $100,000 per person.
Yeah, it's 2.5 times your monthly payroll, rent, utilities, and insurance. Okay, it's 2.5 times that amount, but they will only allow you to qualify. They will remove any compensation that any person has from that calculation if they make over 100,000. So you're basically, it's 2.5 times your monthly overhead, rent, salaries, insurance. But if you make over 100, they're going to cap that person's salary at 100 when they do that 2.5 times monthly calculation.
It's interesting because for myself, like, I pay myself obviously through my company. I pay Shannon through her company, through our company. We're basically the only W-2'd employees. But to keep our business up and going, it actually makes sense for us to apply for that as well, because then we are taking care of our overhead and things like that. And like I said, we have no actual cash coming into our business right now. So that would actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for everybody that it's worth applying for. So,
And when does that happen? That starts the 2nd of April?
Well, we don't know yet. it's going to be like within the next few, I bet it's by next week. I bet it's like end of week next week, you'll be able to start applying. Because it's through the existing, what they call 7A Express loan program, which already exists in every bank's system. So it's a 7A Express loan, which is a fast loan application. And all banks already know how to do it. They're just going to get guidelines next week and probably start taking applications.
So it's not like back with and I'm not going political here, but it's not like when we had the Obamacare thing come in and everybody had to learn and do the new system. We're going to have a new software that was being downloaded or implemented. Everybody's got this. There's plugging in the new guidelines.
Yes. Every bank's going to be responsible for underwriting and taking the risk on. And so they're just going to plug in their guidelines into existing 7A loan applications that already exist. And they're already issuing 7A Express loans already right now.
Right.
The SBA. And so this is just a new guideline with a new funding mechanism.
All right. So in order to wrap this up, I would love to find out from you, like, what are some of your main focus thoughts that you would love people to think about when it comes to their finances right now? Not necessarily even just with the unemployment or with their team members, but, you know, the fact of the matter is that long-term, we got to think about our own financial health and what's going to help us survive however long this is going to be. Like you said, it could be 2 or 3 years of a wild market. Who knows what's going to happen? Yeah. What is the kind of thought process you want people to have? And I know not everybody has their own advisor out there. Of course, we would want them to have an advisor. But when it comes to their own personal finances, what should they be thinking about, and what would you advise them to focus on?
Well, I would say first, thanks for having me on today, Dino.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
I shifted my 11 to 12, and so they're pinging me now saying I got another Facebook Live I got to hop on.
All right.
But I'm going to wrap up with this question and just
awesome.
Let everyone know. I would say the number one thing people need to do is, in as nice of a way how I can say is, you got to get your financial crap together. Okay. You just got to organize yourself. You have to have a system of organization that you can adopt. You know, some people might feel like they're at the stage of their life where mint.com accomplishes that for them, or they can use Quicken to do that. I feel like it's important to our elements framework that we use, I think is more thorough for dental practices. And whether you hire us as a financial advisor or you just want to like tiptoe in and like be part of we have some learning courses that we do. Like I'm launching a students and professionals learning course that's a very reasonably priced, just monthly course. You'll get access to workbooks and worksheets, and you're not going to get sold anything from anybody. It's just teaching you, and you'll learn. You just turn into Facebook Live and join our private Facebook group. Like, you need to start learning and get your financial crap together. And if you have your stuff together, you'll be able to get through crises like this a lot better, you know. And it's people that are unorganized and don't have a system of goals that they're setting around liquidity, around savings, around spending, around tax planning, all these things. Like, there's just a set of checklists. There's like 30 to 40 things you got to do every year. And you need to be making some progress towards that. As much as you're making clinical progress and business progress, you have to make some personal financial progress. And just don't assume that that's going to happen when you're working with a salesperson that wants you to buy more insurance, or they want to sell you a 401k. They want you to put money into mutual funds. Like, that's not going to be empowering to you as an individual. And so,
no, I absolutely agree. And I think having an advisor in any way, shape, or form is going to be better for them, especially somebody who is fee-based. I'm going to throw this last thing out there, is that any doctors that are listening to this, I think the best service you can give to your team members right now is to teach them that during this downtime, teach them how to deal with their finances, deal with their money, because when they come back, they'll be in better shape, and raises are probably not going to happen within the next couple of months. I'm just thinking. Right. So
yeah, and I'll have them join our next new professionals course. We're starting it in another week. It's $29 a month. It's like 4 classes a month for a 12-week period of time. It's like free pretty much.
Yeah.
And just have them, pay for some of your staff to join that and get their financial stuff.
It's a great idea.
Owning, a little bit of their future. If you want to talk to me about that, just you can go to, I think the landing page is up there right now, is dentistadvisors.com/student learning.
Student learning.
Go to dentistadvisors.com/student learning. You can just click the link. You can pay for it via PayPal, and it'll just register them. They'll start getting notifications, and our first class is going to be in a week.
What a really cool gift that would be for every doctor right now. I know it's times are hard or whatever, but to give that to all of your team members right now in a place that they have time to learn and to focus on it. So I will make sure we put that up there in the show notes as well on the podcast, and then up here on the thing, dentistadvisors.com/student learning. All right, we're going to leave it with there because you got to go, and I'm feeling the pressure. Eat your banana in between time and get some energy. But, man, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck. We'll connect soon.
It's great to see you again. Pleasure. Thanks for all that you're doing, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye. Thanks so much again for listening to the Propreneur Podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. Also, if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast as a guest or know somebody who you think would be, go ahead and email us at dino@dinowatt.com. Again, thanks for support. We'll see you on the next episode.